Welcome to class, everyone. This is week 2, session 2. Going to be talking about the assignment 2 today and go into it more detail than we did yesterday. And then the assessment 2. And then we'll do this 10-minute break, come back. Actually, this should be assessment 2 continued. So that's kind of our breakdown for what we'll be doing today. So let's go ahead and get started. Actually, before we start, I did have one email with a student that wanted me to do kind of a public critique of this project from yesterday that we did. Just had one, so I'll go through it. I like this project. I think the color scheme is really nice. I like the kind of the muted orange and blue looks really good, works well together. I like the continents, the map going on and back. I think, there's not a whole lot that I would probably change on this. I might make this monitor here a little bit lower so it kind of fits in with this content down here. It feels like it's floating up and out of it, but it's a minor thing. I like how she's grouped everything else. Although again, pay attention to consistency in terms of the leading. This is the same here, so that's good. But we've got really tight, at the bottom of this, it looks really tight, but here it's a little bit more space. So there's inconsistency in the vertical spacing on some of these. So you'd want to watch that. And if this is tight, you probably want to do the same thing here, not have this floating so high above it. So just tighten the leading up here, and it would maintain consistency with the rest of your grouping. So if we're looking at it, the design principle would be proximity in terms of how this is laid out vertically. And we've got a big space here, but really Latin America and Caribbean should probably not have that much space in between them because we're grouping that title. So these should probably have very little space between them. And these could be how they are. At least she's consistent with where she put the icons below the title. So that's fine. Or, if you wanted to put some variety in the spacing and the vertical spacing, it kind of looks nice here. So maybe consider a little bit more space above these characters here. I can't seem to select them, but just so there's more space above this. But as it is, it works. I think it's a little bit tight because we look at that leading. Leading's just the space between lines, and it kind of has some breathing room here, but it's a little close to the top of the heads here on these characters. So it seems like some of these, with the descender, for example, you want to maintain that space the same. Europe has that lowercase p, right? So look at all the space it has underneath it. But you'd want to match that over here so you gave more space to North America and this below it here, the little icons of the people. So kind of minor stuff, but again, just this week, look at your white space and really pay more attention to how you're working with that white space. And that would be a challenge that I put to everyone this week. Really look at that white space and pay attention to the white space instead of just the elements. Treat the white space as more important than your actual elements. I think that is actually a pretty good way to look at it because it just forces you to really pay attention to that, even if that might seem like it's overdoing it. I guess it's kind of a good learning device. So pay attention to that white space even more than your elements this week. So give it a shot, see how that goes. The only other thing this felt a little bit bunched together as well. And, with the line starting, maybe, consider some space in here. It's not bad. It's kind of a toss-up, but then again, you look for this being the vertical, or up here we're talking It's pretty close to the, especially North America and the characters, the icons below. But that's a vertical gap right there. And then this is a horizontal gap. So it's almost like I'm looking for this same style somewhere else in the piece if you're going to have this, because this is a little bit of a unique treatment. Zoom in on it. It works, but it's, with the A actually touching this color on Africa and Asia and Europe, the E touches this orange. So it can work, but you're doing something a little bit different here. So what we tend to look for if it's different is where else are you doing this in your piece? And if you're not doing it anywhere else, it'll tend to look like a little bit of a mistake. So right now it kind of looks that way. It's not bad. It works. I would reconsider it though, as far as if you're looking at spacing and doing something conventional. I think if you did it somewhere else in the piece, you could probably get away with this. But as it is now, I would probably do it just a more conventional type of treatment, and then just give space to the continent names and the orange bars over here. So that would be my opinion on this, things that you could work on. But overall, I think it's a pretty good, solid project. I think I like the color scheme. I like the background map. Simple, straightforward title. That text looked like it's a little bit stretched on the text underneath it. So be careful on the distortion on Illustrator, I know, and InDesign you can do this easily, but if it starts to look, like it's stretched or distorted in any way, it's definitely not something you want to do to type. And again, generally you don't want to do that. If you have a really good reason to, of course you can, but here it's pretty straightforward. We want to know global internet use, and this is just a subtitle for that. So when you stretch it out, it tends to look a little bit weird. That line is what I'm talking about. It looks like it's got a horizontal stretch applied to that, a little bit much. Sometimes you can do it a little bit depending on your project, but I would really be leery of those features and really the whole creative suite. But I tend to just recommend that people stay away from those in most cases. So here's just probably one example of where you do not want to apply that stretching effect. And some people, she probably did it so it would kind of line up with this title up here. But consider other ways to do it, or just consider just running a centered title, or just making these larger. You can even add another word or two in here, or there's many other solutions other than distorting the type. So that's pretty much all I'd have to say. Any other comments on this one? This was the only one that was submitted, so we'll go ahead and get started after this. Zoom out. Okay, no comments, then let's go ahead and get started. So, assignment. There we go. Okay, so this is the map. This is going to be a 48-inch by 48-inch floor map that's going to map out, tell us where the walking routes are at Walmart. Again, we're going to make sure to download. Here, it's the same one that's in the assessment. So if you're doing the assessment first, it's the same folder that you can use. So both of them are available in each project. You want to get your content out of here. It's everything from the color scheme, the photographs that we're going to be using, all of the text, the logo, etc. So you want to make sure you're pulling all the content out of this download or the one in the assessment. So couple of guidelines here. I think, why don't I just start putting it together. I've already got a bunch of pieces already kind of mapped out and ready to go. So let me just go ahead and get started. Show you what I have. This is all taking different various bits and pieces from that folder that we download. The only real requirement on the map as far as text goes is this first paragraph, so it's just the overview. You want to be using that in your brochure also. But this is the only bit of content that we need on the map. So some of these other things could be beneficial, and if you wanted to use these bullet points, for example, or some other bit of content in here on your map, you could easily do that. So I'm just going to leave it up to you, but this is the only part that I'm actually going to be looking for on your map. So make sure you get that first part. It's all bold. And you can change it if you don't want the bold. This is just like this in the Word document that it comes with. And of course you can, in fact, we want you to change, the typeface here and the typesetting. So don't think that you have to conform to this being all bold. In fact, typically you don't want a paragraph of text like this to be all bold. But you might in the case of a map because people are reading it from a distance. We'll see how it looks and see if, a lot of times I'll print things like this out so I can see it and just kind of visualize it a little bit more and see what I'm actually going to be looking at. So we're going to be pulling all our content from here. This is just a character that I made, traced from a stoplight photo I had that I adjusted a little bit. So, you can add little things like that. This is our color palette. And the thing is with, yesterday I mentioned that Walmart had a website with a bunch of their branding information. I went to that yesterday to check it out, and it actually doesn't look like it's maintained anymore. So it's not there. And I added these two colors based on their color scheme. So, perhaps it's not fair for me to use these extra colors. I think I'm going to just delete them because, if we can use that, we're just going to have to work with what we have, I think, here, which is these three. And that is within the branded guidelines. So it's just those three. I said yesterday we could use some other colors so long as it was secondary to these. So, if you had any kind of other color, let's say red's a really common one to use. That's what I showed yesterday. Let's say you want to use purple for something. Well, yeah, that's fine because, we can just pretend that's a branded color. And as long as you're using it as a secondary color, kind of something that's not taking up a lot, maybe it's a starting point, or maybe it's a little icon or something that we want it to jump out. Yeah, you can do that with some different colors. Otherwise, I don't have Walmart's branded guidelines, and otherwise we could use that website, which we used to for this class in the past, but they've taken it out. So we'll just, for the most part, have to work with these three colors and then gray and black. And that's part of their brand. But again, you might want to add a few colors here and there. Go easy with it. Let's say you're doing the dotted line and you want to use some different color in this. Yeah, that's fine. It's going to be, as long as it's minor, as long as you're using these main colors primarily, then you should be fine. Yeah, the walking paths can be a different color, and I'm even gonna, because it's so limited, I think as long as you go easy with this, you can go over the top really easily. But as long as, like I say, these are your main colors that you're using, you can use tints and shades of these main colors. So you could actually, um, so let's say green. Uh, now you could use on the green just tints and shades here for, say, your running path. But if this takes on mostly this shade of green, you're not looking at Walmart brand. You're looking at something else. So just make sure that you're using common sense when you use these tints and shades. So does that make sense? So the question was just, can we use shades and tints? And yeah, that's fine. And so is using different colors like our purple color there. As long as it's within reason. I might try to make mistakes on purpose so you can kind of see, like, suddenly that no longer looks like Walmart. So if you use those sparingly, you should be good. All right, so the other thing is this map. Now, I'll show you what I did with the map. It was very simple. You're provided these ones you can use. And I said yesterday, you don't have to use these exact ones. In fact, don't use them in the, I don't want to see these placed in your map. These are just reference. So, you'll be taking kind of the cue from, this is what their brand looks like. This is how they do their signage, etc. Here's another one. These are all official Walmart examples. Quite a bit different. There's another one. Okay, it's pretty simplified. Here's the one that I did based on those maps. And maybe the thing that makes sense to do is just, let's place that map, for example. Do the one that's most like the one that you want to use. Maybe it's this one. So I just simplified it. There's a perspective going on here. You can do perspective, but I don't think I really want to in this case. And I'll change a few things. And that's just, this is how I did my map. So you're welcome to simplify that. You can put the perspective back on it later if you wanted to. But that's how I kind of put my map together, tracing out over these different departments. So fairly easy way to go. Of course, I put the labels on each one. And nothing has to be exact here. You just kind of figure out what the store would typically be, and you can simplify things. It's fine. This is a fairly simple map. There's only maybe 20 different boxes in here within all the different areas. So you can do something like that. You don't even have to use these outside areas. We're just gonna maybe have the track indoors. If you notice on this map, it's very condensed. We don't have a lot of white space between these different block areas. So it's not very much that we can run our track lines in here. So when I did mine, I put extra space between these different areas just to show that, now we can see our track areas. So where we're going to go. Get this on the white background, and already we're starting to see with the white background how that works with their brand a little bit more. And go ahead and group that. So that's my main part of this, that I just went and traced this map, just exactly what I did here, but using more colors. So next I took these kind of skier icons, beginner, intermediate, advanced, and I kind of like that, but you might choose to do something different. I don't know if there's any skiers that, if you wanted to do these different signs and symbols, you're more than welcome to do that. Or maybe you don't. Maybe you want to do something different. Maybe you want to do checkered flags, or more marathon, or like a starting gun, or there's many different things that you could do to kind of be creative here. Just your main thing is, as long as you're within those guidelines of the brand, then you can be as creative as you want, really. So let's see, start here. You could probably move that up a little bit, or within reason. I like to put on some margins on this kind of early on. Make sure those are turned on. And I'll do those. I'll just put consistent margins on all sides. So we got our map in there. We've got our running track already. I've got my little beginner, intermediate, expert. That is part of the requirement here. It's where was that? It's on this one. So this other one, there's two Word documents in that download. So this is large scale requirements are in here in this one. Trifold brochure requirements are here. This, it says you have to put the brochure holder on the piece, and you can if you want. That's the one I'll waive. If you wanted to just say, well, this is in a separate holder that goes next to it, that would be all right with me too. So that's where your 3 tracks are preferred: beginner, intermediate, advanced. Make sure you have those 3, and if you want more, you could, but make sure you get at least those 3. So distances and departments, we've got departments, we've got some distances in here as well. Even if it's a mile, half mile, quarter mile, even if you're rounding it up. You can also be exact if you want. And then you're walking at Walmart overview paragraph. So that one's the other thing that you needed in here. And anything else that you want to add to it, keeping in mind that you don't want it to be too busy. Again, it's always one of those considerations, like how much is too much. When you look at Walmart's brand, typically it's pretty clean, like they don't have a lot of busyness going on there. So this is another typical thing that they do. Zoom in and put a kind of like a header at the top of the map, somewhere like about that much. I don't know what happened here, but it's that dark blue that we've come to know so well as part of their branding. Bring these guys in. Either they can go by that margin, or they can break the margin sometimes if they want to We had them bleed off the edge, like the arrow could bleed off like that. Not sure exactly what I'm going to do yet. Walking at Walmart. Centering it might work. Kind of like that. Might also work over here. A little bit less typical of the Walmart brand. Like, it seems like top center is a little bit more often what they do. I think when you're designing branded stuff, you do run into, it can get a little bit boring because a lot of things are already solved for you. I mean, it's much faster because you don't have to make a lot of those choices, those decisions that can slow you down because they've already been made. It's like, well, we always center the titles at the top, and that might be in your brand guide. Or maybe not. You know, maybe this particular piece is a little bit different than the norm, and you could do something a little bit different like that. Let's get some more content on here, see what we like, see what works. Got that. This is another thing that has to be on. Kind of a lot of text for people to read, I think. Trim your waistline, improve your health, live better. So I chose to put those at the top. I might, you know, I could make those bigger. Really, I could just run this all the way across the top, but it doesn't. Leave me a lot of space for doing that. I think it works okay though. Walking is a low impact exercise with numerous health benefits. Maybe I want to break this paragraph up so it's not so condensed. Again, I'm pretty tight on room. Kind of like that a little bit more. Just grouping it together. You can do it anywhere you want, anywhere you need. No prior with anywhere and need no prior physical conditioning. Walmart has teamed up with the Mayo Clinic to present Walking at Walmart. Each of these stores across the country will be mapping out distances and routes through the store to suit any walking fitness level. Needs to be a space in that right there. In the winter months, when it's often too treacherous to walk outside, come walk at Walmart, where our weather is always perfect. So that's the write-up everybody has to have on here. Let's people know that they can go to any Walmart store and do this walk. Walk at Walmart. All right, my brochure holder, lower right corner. And that's pretty much it for my mat. I'd already kind of compiled a lot of this. Pretty simple, I think. Now there's a question of like, again, you get back to branding. Do I want some, I almost want something else down here at the bottom, but is it necessarily this? Maybe we could use some photos down there. Walmart doesn't do that a lot. They don't put the kind of like a base, like an anchor down there. So, you know, I don't know if I want to do that. I don't mind the look of it. It's just, is that typically what they do in their branding? Pretty rarely. So I think I'm going to take that off. You know, it looks okay. probably easier to take that off. And, you know, not go against their branding in any way. So let's maybe put in some photos, place. These gray areas would be like either cash registers or places where the management was, kind of offices and things like that. So they're unimportant, but I just put them there to indicate their occupied space in this area. I could put a legend or something on that, but I think it's kind of obvious within context what those places are. Let's see, maybe a couple more photos. What looks like a good running route. There we go. Running/walking. So here I was talking about yesterday, aspect ratio and making them all the same. Maybe we can get them in here and figure out first what we want. And then we can make them all the same because, you know, most of the time you're not going to want to just use those straight as they are. They're different formats like this. It's just going to work better if just go Option, double click. We can go straight into Photoshop. It's kind of a neat, handy shortcut. And this one as well. We know they're all the same width. Let's see what the height is on this one, and then just 5.24. Now that's kind of a weird one. Go into pixels, 379. Maybe go 375, or just to make it even here. Well, that I don't want to distort the photo, so here's another thing we can do. Create a new Photoshop document. And now I can't remember what that was. 375 by 600. So this is 72, and we'll just pretend it's 300 because it's print, and usually it would be high resolution. Sometimes for trade show graphics and, you know, floor graphics like this, it might be a different resolution, like 150 or even 100. I've done projects where, you know, you want to ask the printer what it is. 72 isn't completely odd, but it is a little bit low res. You don't have to change these here. This is what we have to work with them. So, you know, you can't really blow these up, but, you know, pretend that they are a higher resolution than they are. 72, let's see, width 600, and this was 375. What I gather from what I remember, we'll just go with that. Maybe for this, I'll do 150, so twice that resolution. Then we should be safe at least. CMYK color, I like to work in CMYK usually. And this way, you kind of have one, getting that spinning beach ball. A lot of times that happens when I've got these three programs open. So here we've got one file that we're working with. I don't like little sliver things like this, so what I might do is just enlarge it a little bit. So long as it's less than 20%, it's usually fine. But now that we have this one document, we can just save it and call it photos for map. And I've got to go back to here, find my folder. So this will be, kind of save folders, save pictures out of here. This is the format that we want. So by setting up a file like this, we maintain the width and the height. We just kind of crop our photos within this. So there I have this. Just drag it right into this in here. And so now I have to maybe adjust that just a tad. It's not more than 20%. You usually don't have to worry about it. There's this little thing here that I want to crop out. I don't care for that, or I could maybe even clone it out if I really wanted the top or the bottom part of that. I won't bother to do that now. So let's get one more. It just looks like a good route that would work for this. Meats, maybe. Seafood looks, we can do that one. So I just position it where I want within this little document that I created. And now I'm ensured that these are all going to be the same size. Okay, question is it possible to wait until you finish the entire design to export the project in CMYK? Yeah, that's fine. You could do that. I think I like to manage it this way a little bit more because it's just a little bit more the way that I'm used to doing it, but it's just a little bit easier to manage if you don't have to have the printer worry about doing that later. Because what will happen if you're working in all RGB and maybe it's not a huge issue with this particular project, but sometimes you'll lose color range where colors are really important and you're used to the RGB, but then you go into the CMYK and you lose a lot of those colors. So I like to break it up and manage it in chunks, but normally, you wouldn't really have to necessarily manage it this way. So yeah, I think either way you want to work, Ramon, I think you could do it later when you export it too, if that's what you'd rather do. On this particular project, I'm probably not going to be too hung up on the colors that are coming out of here. But like I say, I'm just kind of used to this managing the CMYK kind of early on in the process and trying to figure out, well, what do I have that I might want to work with and adjust. It's easier for me to do it that way. But mainly from the takeaway from this is if you create a PSD file and look at these aspect ratios, the width to height, if you do that, they're going to be the same. And generally you want that to be the same. So for this, what I can do here, I'll just save this PSD file and turn off the layers as I go one by one. I like to go, you can either do save as or save for web or web and devices. That's in export. I actually like this feature a lot. They tucked it away in legacy, but I think this is a good one to use. I really like this, the control that you have in this save for web area. So this, let's say 60%. I'm not too worried about file sizes really for this. I mean, you could probably just go 80, or just 100, because I'm not really too worried about it. So I'll save that. It's going to take me all the way back here. Say 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3. Same thing. I've just preserves all the settings from the JPEG. I just got it cranked all the way up to 100%. And everything else is the same. Turn this one off. And again, everything's the same. Just click on that previous one and change our last number. So now, as you can see, we've got all the same size, all the same aspect ratio. That's going to look a little bit better when we bring this in. So let me actually delete these and bring in these new ones. Command-Shift-P, I believe, is a shortcut for placing those. Up here. Can't remember if they'll let me do it 3 at once. So that's good. So those are all same and will kind of fit well in this area. All right, so those three, maybe use the alignment panel. This bottom one, click a key item, and maybe put 0.5 space between them, probably good. So we've just got photos of the store. I don't mind if you want to add your own captions or take existing content. This is some content, let's see. So that's just the guideline. I don't need that. That's just, sometimes I like to cut and paste the directions in here because it makes it a little easier. I don't have to keep going back and forth. These grays I noticed is, why don't we use their branded gray color? And it's, well, it's a little bit dark. Let's see how it looks anyways. This will be covered up because this is part of the brochure anyways, so. Yeah, it doesn't look too bad. You could use their branded gray color, and in theory it would look a little bit more branded. So I'm just thinking some sort of a text underneath this. And if we wanted to go here, like I almost broke it off earlier, maybe we could even take some of this and break it up, but there's no reason that it all has to be together. So maybe we could do something like this as just one idea. I thought that was a lot of text all in one area anyways. Wasn't too wild about it, so as long as you have this text in here, think you can spread it around a little bit, but see what's happening there. Oh, we don't want to do that to type. Change that type here to convert to area type. So that's going to give us the box that we can take. Won't distort it. We'll bring it down like this and it'll flow from line to line. Probably want something a little bit more relevant here. I'm not really sure what I want to do. Maybe take the start. We'll use this font, Hand of Sean. And it's already colored, so maybe we do something like this. Start. Doesn't really, let's see, where do we go here? Seafood, would this be the restaurant? It is now. Well, it's the seafood area now. So now we're going to start here. This should probably be flipped if it's going to be on that side. So we can do this. Just kind of edit in Photoshop as we need. Edit. All right. There we go. Flip canvas horizontal. Except I don't want that seafood there. So that's not going to work. All right, I was looking for a quick solution here. That's not going to work though. I'm not going to bother flipping it. It's fine if that's on this side. It just seems weird because this would seem like it's on your left. But that'll take too long to have to reverse this. All right, make your way something like the groceries. You're halfway there. There we go. Why? How about that? Groceries equals halfway. Halfway point. Whoops. Didn't mean that. So we're our captions, just put right below this. All right, close enough. Reward yourself at the bakery. I think this typeface is a little bit large. Captions. We can make them more like this. It's a little small. 24 points, that's fairly large. All right. I'm going to change this to the same size. Bring some more cohesiveness to that. This is a little bit too large for this area. Took it from up here. But it's such a small area across here. The line length measure. So I'm going to bring this way down. Probably want to follow some other guideline that's on here already that we're using. This one is 50. This one will be 30 or so, something like that. I just kind of arbitrarily chose that because there wasn't anything else on here, but you know, I can obviously adjust that if I need to. A little mistake there. I'll just change that really fast. And we don't usually want that. Well, we don't ever want that. Single, especially a hyphenated word that breaks onto your last line. So we want to typeset that so that that doesn't happen. One thing I could do is just turn off hyphenation here. The best thing that hyphenation is used for is just keeping your right ragged edge looking good and smooth. And here it's not like we have that to worry about because it's such a small amount of text. So unhyphenate. Guess that's a paragraph maybe, right? Yeah, hyphenation. Just turn it off for this. That's not totally solving my problem though, because we still have that orphan or widow, however you want to look at it. One line, one word. Things that appear on those last lines we don't want. All right, so let's zoom out. Let's kind of see how this looks overall. I'll select all of these, group them, they'll just be a little easier to work with. I mean, I just added this in here. I don't think it's really serving me too well now. I think I could easily get rid of that. And you could just use those photos at the bottom. I almost don't like that equal sign I just typed in there. Maybe grocery instead of numbers, halfway point, something like that maybe. So just making a few little adjustments. Make sure these are all aligned right. Select all of them. I don't want that. I have it aligned to artboard. I'll just go align to selection, and then press this, click it. So that works. Space-wise, they all start at the same basic point here, which is lower right corner. Tweaking those little, thinking of craftsmanship and how these all kind of fall into place. All right, so yeah, I hate to seem too wishy-washy, but I kind of like this up here. It's just a lot of text in one area, and I'm trying to think if I come up with a better idea later of how to break that text up. Feel free to do that, because it is a lot of text to just stand there and read all that. Maybe about half of that is kind of a little bit more reasonable expectation for people to just stand there and read the whole thing. But you can also leave it how it is, however you want to do it. I have a tendency to want to break up big blocks of text for something that people are just going to stand. You know, are they going to actually read all that? Probably not. These guys could come down maybe. I'm just kind of making some final touches, and I'm pretty much almost done. Ungroup so I can work with this. Maybe bring this down. And I don't know if I'm wild about that. What is this little box of content? Something like that maybe is feeling a little bit better, to me anyway. This doesn't have to line up with anything, but sometimes I just like to. It just looks more organized, might as well make some sort of alignment here for the brochure. Indication. This would probably be in real life a clear plastic thing. Question is, could you bold the important parts of this block of text so people could just skim it? Yeah, absolutely. I think you'd like, think of things like that. It isn't necessarily written like that in your text, but yeah, you could definitely do that and make it a little bit more interesting. But since it's going to be hard to do bullet points, you want to include the whole paragraph. So it would be a matter of bolding things like, or italic. Italic is your typical way you do emphasis in here, in like a body text blocks like this. So yeah, and that can make it a little bit more interesting, but it can also make it look kind of catastrophic too if you're not careful as far as adding bold to things like this. Make sure you have the whole block of text somewhere. If it's broken up, it's fine. I think if it's don't simplify it in terms of like, bullet points or things like that, if that makes sense. And make sure that piece is on there. We'll pretend that's a client request and they're insisting that that be there. And I try to do that for anything that is in the directions already. We just pretend that's what clients are asking for, and that's what so that's part of our goal as a designer, is we hit what they're going for. I just keep seeing little things that I want to change here. As always. Why I didn't just try to use the pen tool and continue this. I'll just be easier if it's looking weird. It looks okay now. You can always work with this over here in the stroke panel. It's more of a corner, so I'm going to get rid of that. Ooh, wait, what happened there? Our arrow on the wrong thing. There we go. All right, that's better. What's an easy way to make the lines for the routes? I think I did it in a pretty easy way. I just used the pen tool or the line tool. I can't remember which was which. I probably used both of them. So I just recommend doing that. And then as far as, how you want to do it, like dotted lines, solid line, dash line, just be consistent. Make sure whatever you use makes sense. I think I could have done these dotted or dash, but it makes it a little bit more busy, that dash line. So I just figured I would keep it a straight line. So pen tool, if you want to do the pen tool, that one's a really easy way to go. Click, hold down shift, click, go wherever you want, and then you can make it like that. So that's an easy way to do it. So you're saying you did one that was the line, one solid, one dash, and one dotted. That could work. Sounds like it might start looking a little busy, but I'd have to see it. You might want to make a distinction based just on color and keep them exactly the same. But that's not necessarily true. I'd have to look at what you had. And you'll have to look at what you have and, say, whether or not that works, or do you want to try some other things. I think just using color alone is a good way to distinguish it and make it not look too busy, because you can see that line really calls attention to itself, almost too much attention. Just with that dash going on, I think. So you just have to make that judgment call on, what you think works. If I do that all the time, I'll have an idea and I'll lay it out and realize, well, this is too much. This is too busy. I didn't quite think it would look like that. So, I change things all the time. But yeah, considering something really simple like color to just indicate those lines would be a pretty good way to go about this. Because when you're doing stuff like, even if I did thickness or something here, maybe that would work, but maybe it would look a little strange. I'm always for recommending experimentation. See what works. See what doesn't work. If you think that there's any possibility that it's going to work, do it, because I think that's how you learn and develop faster. So, if you think there's a possibility of it working, try it. The more you try, the more you learn, basically. Try it out. Try stuff out. Try new things. See what works and what doesn't. I think that's looking at stuff is probably the way that I learned quite a bit. Yeah, a lot of changes. It's common. I have a lot of changes as well. Very common. I almost want to line this sign up down here, or something lined up with this, and so it just comes together at the bottom a little more. So maybe I can use the direct selection tool, bring this down so it lines up with these others a bit more. And I almost want to go one more click with the pen tool on this arrow. Reversed it. There we go. So something like that. So here I have these down here centered, which look okay, but maybe I want to put this at the starting point and kind of put it in more proximity with our beginning. And I'll also align at the bottom here with this area. So I'm just making little final touches. This thing doesn't really have to align with anything. In fact, I'd probably prefer it didn't because it's outside of the map. But if you're doing any kind of alignment, you're also suggesting that there's a relationship there. Anytime you're using proximity or grouping or however you want to look at it, you're communicating that these are tied together. So here's the start, and this is what we would see. I didn't put a lot of time into this, but you get the idea. It's start in the seafood. Maybe if I really wanted to make this even better, I could go in and use our orange and make up a some sort of a starting line here. Goes and follows the same track. Make it look like it's kind of a real starting line. So I'm following that perspective that's here, that same line. And well, if I really want to make this right and use my same color orange, or maybe it's yeah, we can use that orange color, why not? This is the easiest thing to do if I'm going to use this. Use the hex color, hexadecimal color, F47B20. I'm just going to cut and paste that. And go into Photoshop. Select this, hex color in here, go OK. And we will just fill this, orange. So now we've got a start. We could even put start in here. Now this is going to be a little bit more tricky, but I'll go for it. Why not? I'm just going to go maybe white. Make sure we're doing Myriad Pro since we're still on our branded fonts, so this doesn't look out of place. This may take a lot longer than I want it to, so let me make sure I hustle through this. Helvetica regular, Myriad Pro is what we want. Period pro, regular, maybe bold. All caps. Yeah, let's go bold on the Photoshop's not as wonderful with dealing with type. And add some more space in here. Look like a starting line. It's pretty. It's going to be kind of a quick starting line, but put it in the middle. We might use our guys like our symbol icon walking characters in here. Maybe do something more interesting than that. But I'm just showing kind of an example of stuff that you can do on your projects to really kind of make it that one step better, I think. All right, so here I think what I need to do is first rasterize this layer. So let's do that. Rasterize type. And now let's go into edit, transform, and distort. Now I can just kind of grab it in. That distort's a useful one, usually. It is a good one, actually. However, this is a little difficult to manage. Matching the perspective, see that line there? That's where I want to bring my distort. I don't know why it doesn't want to grab this corner. So that perspective line we're going to match. Put it right in the middle. Make it fit on here. All right, it's not perfect, but it'll work. So from afar, it looks good, like it's like it fits. Might want to do some sort of a. Well, I'm running short on time. I might do some sort of a multiply, like a layer effect, but I already combined the layers, so it's all on the back. So things that I could do, I'll just mention and then move forward. So I don't want this to be a PSD layered file, so what I want to do is flatten it. Command E will merge all layers in Photoshop. It's kind of a good command. Save that one. I'm going to crank it all the way up to 12 maximum. Click yes. Now we've got our starting line here, kind of facing like right where it would be. So this, in theory, maybe, starts right here and then goes into this. Now, I don't know. I mean, I could even mark the green markers in some of these, the green, the blue, and the black, but that's going kind of far with this. I don't know that I completely want to do that, but maybe adding something like a starting block or something like that might tie it in, be more relevant to this area. So anyhow, that would be my take on this map. I'm still kind of wondering, so maybe move this over here. Is it? I kind of like it over here a little bit more. Centered above this, or use the margin that we've been using. Looks like it's centered above this content here. But I'm just, really, I don't know if I'm done with this. I'm just kind of moving this around and trying to see what I like that, or do I like it in the center? I like it over here. It just kind of balances these characters over here, the icons over on the left, a little bit more. But then again, Walmart might have in their branding, you know, that we want all our logos at the top center on the blue. And that might be part of their branding. It might not be. I don't know. So there's a little bit of latitude with everyone here as far as their branding, but make sure that it looks, for the most part, like something you would see if you were to walk into Walmart. Another thing we could do is line it up here. So we got like a left alignment with this, which I kind of like that actually. So it lines up with this, and I can bring that W over so it looks even more like it works. We made this bigger, so this went on the X height. Zoom out, turn off our guides. Looks a little bit too big. I'm gonna go back. Command Z, Command Shift Z. What looks right as far as does it line up? That W is kind of hard because it's got a slant on it. If you take it from the base, you know, it's not going to look right because you have that optical slant going out in this hard line here. Hard line meaning, I'll just show it with this. Going back to these optical cues again. This goes up. So that, you know, the W goes over a little bit. But when we look at it from back here, it looks like it lines up because it just has that slant there. So visually, sometimes people struggle where to put those things. If we put it so that this is at the very bottom, for example, how do you line stuff up? That's always a question for most students when you get into these situations, which you're in a lot. So here's that left edge that we want to look at as a default text alignment. So be left justified text. We're going to use that line and kind of continue it up. But we're using that bottom of that character. And it's, if I take my kind of rule here, to me, I look back and I'm like, that's not in alignment. That doesn't look right, even though that bottom part is. So what I do is I'll take that over, just nudge it over a few times until it looks visually correct. There's no way that I can really line this up with a by looking at it like with a ruler, because if I went like this, it's also going to look like it doesn't quite line up. Like, so somebody looking at the sign is probably going to get a little bothered by that, even if it's subconsciously they look at this and they just walk away thinking, boy, they didn't put that sign together very well. So things like that are pretty important with typography, and part of the reason is that you will be doing that on just about every single project that involves typography. Is how do you line things like this up? How do you line the title up? And you have like a W or some odd shaped character, and it's much larger. Well, the answer in almost all cases is what looks good, not necessarily, you know, your alignment palette, what your alignment panel says. So this, that'd probably be a better way to show it, is our alignment panel says that is in alignment, but to me that doesn't really look right. So what I like to do is compensate for that W slant or something like that. So anyway, I'll call that my map, and we'll be done with it as far as putting the map together goes. Any questions on the map? A couple questions I didn't see typed in here, so let me read back here a second. Okay, no questions. Let's do a break for 10 minutes. And for this one, you would obviously, let me show that. I haven't showed that yet. So I like to do it this way. Save as, and down here, Adobe PDF. And we'll just put in, obviously, what you normally put in. Des 240, last name, assignment 2 in your file name, the way that you've been doing it. And we'll just click our PDF. I recommend you not doing anything. You just keep it at Illustrator default. And that way, a lot of times I can go in and preserve it. Go in and actually work with your file. So don't do anything, just click Save PDF on that one and make sure that everything's all right. I see that we've got an issue, it looks like over here, where I didn't go out all the way out on the bleed. So it's good it lets me do this so I can fix it. I can see anything that's wrong with it and then fix it. I can also look at, how does that look overall? Does it fit on this page pretty well? Kind of don't like this big space here. It's just hanging out, or maybe we could get rid of this one. It's got this weird kind of slant going on with it. So I'm gonna take our kind of slug area here, and I'm gonna move this over here. Something like that. Now it looks a little more visually balanced. The big, could you run the little people off the page like you did with the big people at the top? Yeah, I mean, there's different solutions that I could do. I guess these guys are more used as an icon here. So I want to keep them on. But I also like the whole thing that this is, well, these were supposed to be in alignment here, all the same size and in alignment with these other ones. So fixing a few mistakes. So that's a little bit better, I think. And what else we're gonna change? Anything else that I can think of? Now this doesn't need to be that high. So we can bring that down so it's in alignment with that one. Just looking at if I can change it, why not? All right, so now it looks more together a little bit, a little more visually balanced, I think. Maybe even bring them down a little bit. Yeah. All right, overall, that'll work. And I'll save it. Oh yeah, the main thing I was gonna fix was this back here. Well, that's pretty odd that that's not. Not sure why that's okay. It's just a preview now. It's fine. All right, so that's what I'll end up handing in. So fix any kind of last minute details like that, and then submit it to the Dropbox. That's just a preview. I don't know why it was showing like it didn't go to the edge, but I mean, I guess, you know, you could, Brianne, if you wanted to, you know, your project, my project, these guys are using an icon down here and more of a design, get your attention element up here. So that's why I didn't run them or want to run them off the bottom down there. But, you know, you could, it's many different ways of kind of solving the same problem. Yeah, you know, maybe that does look kind of odd with one element running off the page. And you know what we could do? Brianne was just saying that it looks weird because there's only this one arrow running off. I think it's almost kind of a toss-up to me as to whether or not that does need to do that. So, you know, does that work any better? Less cluttery, probably. I think it works a little better. So, yeah, thanks for pointing that out. I think that didn't really need to be there, that arrow running off the page. Brianne just mentioned that. Maybe we could take it off down there too. So yeah, I mean, even me as a designer, I'm always learning, always changing things, finding new ways of doing things. Change is inevitable. So, you know, in this case, yeah, I think you're right, Brianna. It's a little bit less cluttery. Anytime you can make things a little less cluttery, like what are we pointing there for? It's almost like maybe we lose that arrow as well. So let's see how that looks. We zoom out. I'm liking it already. Lengthen this one a little more. All our other boxes are corner, and this one has round. This is different, so it's not so bad if it's round. But, you know, maybe that would be another thing we could change here. See how that looks. So they're all the same. Kind of like that better. Anyway, so I can nitpick it quite a bit more, but I think it's working. It's good to do that a little bit. It's good to kind of question, like I say, what can be better, and you know, what do I need to do to make it just that little bit better. I don't think you can really go wrong when you're doing that. Well, certainly you can always do too much anything, right? But it generally is a good practice to just look at that project and before you submit it, go, what could be better on this? All right, so let's say it's finalized. I don't really think I have anything else to say if nobody else does. I think this one piece here seems a little bit odd. I might, again, anytime you have that anomaly, the one thing that's different, is there a really good reason to have that one good thing that's different? Or should you just consider making a couple things different, or making it the same as something else? So here I'm just taking these brochures, which nobody will see this unless maybe there's no brochures in the, you know, they might see this spot. So now this will just be black. Myriad Pro, yeah. So I just noticing that that's our only area where there's this color. I want to line it up since it's with the rest of the building. This is not the building, but this is out of alignment and on purpose because it's a different part, but at least it's the same color. You know, maybe to add some balance, we could put some kind of management area over here. And really, you're just designing your own map. You don't have to, you know, in real life, you probably just have a map that you would use. So there we get kind of the balance of color a little bit more. Because that was weird. I just ended up with this only one kind of sticking out, and now I just put it around different areas. Maybe since that is, I can't actually, why is that last? Should be black. That's fine, we'll keep it like that. So if they're out of brochures, we see that gray spot, or you know, please take a brochure or whatever. Maybe it's just an indicator. Maybe it doesn't actually need to be there on the map, but consider it in your projects. I said yesterday that you can not have it on here, so even if we got rid of it, that'd be okay. Which I kind of like. Although there's now kind of a big spot over here that, you know, I could always do something like this. Make it look visually balanced, like something's there in the store, and so that should probably work. Something like that. All right. Save it. We're done. So that goes in Dropbox. Done nitpicking. It always reaches a point where you're just like, okay, over this. And that's probably a good time to quit. So whether or not you have that on there, it's up to you. That little brochure thing. We're going to do the brochure next in the second part of the class. I kind of like how it overlaps too. That looks good. But either way, you can have it or not. All right, if there's no questions, then let's do the 10-minute break. I can't believe it's already so late. Dang, how did that happen? Oops. And we'll see it in 10. Good girl. Good girl. Good girl. You good girl. You good girl. All right, welcome back. Let's do the assessment now. Continuing with assessment 2 here. The brochure must contain the following 6 parts: walking at Walmart overview, store map with distances. So you're going to take the map and put it in here. So you're placing that, I guess, well, or some version of it really. If you needed to simplify it, that would also be fine. Maybe make it black and white, or just highlight key parts, or you don't necessarily, you can modify it a little bit. I guess that's what I'm saying. It doesn't have to be placed exactly. All right, so progress journal space, community walk event calendar, walking at Walmart checklist, and Walmart store contact info. So we've got all of that info here that, as I say, it's the same content that we download with the assignment, but you can download it here as well. And let's take a look at that. Where did I have this? Ah, here it is. So it's just the walking at Walmart folder. So this is a basic guide, or this one here, project requirements. The real content is this one, fitness walking brochure. So open that. Just a Word document, here we go. And so this is, if you scroll through this, it's 5 pages long with all our content that we're going to use. And this, for example, optional depending on available space. Maybe you don't want to bring this in at first, but anything that doesn't say optional, you have to fit that on the brochure. So that's one thing that you're going to have to think about, is you've got a lot of content here to work with and fit on that trifold brochure. It's only 2 pages, 8.5 by 11. Not 2 pages, but it's 2 sides. That's what I mean. So it's front and back. You're going to have a lot of text here to work with. Plus, you're going to have your map and kind of the calendar, which you can create a calendar however you'd like, really. Get creative with that, but make sure that it also makes sense, of course. Creative with it, just have some fun, do something that's useful as well. I think some students have done just kind of lines where they do, like, days that they participate, and they just leave an area for people to write themselves. Other people make more of a traditional calendar. So whatever you want to do, make sure that you have all of those components here included, all 6 of these. But we're giving you all the content here, maybe or maybe not on this. What benefits of walking? I think it sounds good. It might be something you want to include, but it's optional, as it tells us right here. It's the only content in this document that is optional, though. So you also need to include this in the brochure. It's a lot of content in that brochure. So now that we know what we're working with, or have some idea of what we're working with, let's go into InDesign. You could also use Illustrator if you wanted, but InDesign's a little bit better for something like this. I'll show you how to set it up and kind of get started on it. I'm obviously out of time, so I won't be able to finish a whole project, but I'll at least get you started, give you some ideas on, what to work with. All right, orientation, I'm going to do landscape and landscape. Uncheck facing pages, that's very important for this. We don't want facing pages. Number of pages, 2. 8.5 by 11, that's what we want. I'll say 11 by 8.5. Let's look at the bleed at the bottom. I'm going to hit shift, and actually I'm just going to hit nothing. I'm just going to hit the up arrow twice, and it'll be 0.125. Puts that 1/4 inch bleed, 1/8 of an inch on all sides. So that's what we'll want there. Slug, I'll ignore that. into columns and margins, very important for this project. I'm going to go no gutter. Actually, let me see. Number of columns 3. And now normally this should be showing me what changes I'm making, but it's not for some reason. I'm not sure why. Normally I like to see this back here. So what I want to do is columns 3. And probably the reason why, I've got a cat that wants to go outside. He's being terribly annoying. Wants to go outside. Won't let me rest until he is able to do that. So hold on just a second, or we'll hear that the rest of the time. All right, we're back. That would take care of that background noise. Otherwise, it would go on for quite a while. He's pretty consistent about things. Anyhow, so gutter, I think, will be like a 0.5, and I'm really unsure as to why this is not showing. Even if I check and uncheck, it's not showing back here. So let's just go okay. I think this is about what I want. Margin's actually probably 0.25, so 1/4 of an inch. And for the columns 3 and the gutter 0.5, I think that's what we're after. Let's see. Well, that's really weird. This is what I want here, but it didn't happen on our main page. I'm confused as to why it didn't. I'm going to do this really quick. I want to see if I can get it to work. Same settings as before. Actually, this would be, see, now it's working. Now, this is another thing that happens sometimes if I have too many programs open. Just little glitchy things like that start coming up. So this is more the document that I want. I can see it, same settings as before. So what this is going to do is allow me to have I didn't want facing pages. That's what's wrong here. So I have to uncheck that. And margins are, I'm just going to have all the same settings that I've been doing here. That was 5.5, I mean. All right. So what I should have is 2 documents that line up directly, and a couple of documents that I close because I don't need. So it's these 2. I'm going to drag a guide. Now this is where the fold is going to be. And another one here right in the middle of those margins. And we'll do the same thing on this other side. And now we've got a basic trifold brochure. I'll show you, this is kind of front cover. Let me go ahead and set up a paragraph style. Not paragraph, paragraph style. call it title, and we're using Walmart's branded fonts. That's either Hand of Sean or Myriad Pro, the fonts that you're using from that download. And this one would be Myriad Pro for our title. You know, you could use Hand of Sean. I'd probably be pretty limited with that font on this brochure, though. You know, use it very sparingly. I might have these a little larger, maybe 18 point, looks about right. I can always set this later. That's close enough. So front cover, and our back cover is over here. So this would be what they call an accordion fold. Kind of looks like a zigzag on the side. If you look at it from the side, it would look like a Z or an S. It would fold here, and then zigzag kind of underneath. So, you know, the flip side. So this is the flip side of this. When you take it out of the rack and you look at the front and you look at the back, this would be your back cover. This would be your front. So that's how that would be put together. A pretty common standard brochure. You can also do things like gate folds or roll folds, but that's a little bit more trickiness to the setup. This is a really straightforward way to set up the three panel brochure, and it's fairly easy. Not a whole lot we have to worry about, such as folding allowance and things like that. So this is probably the best way to go on this project. What I'd recommend anyways, I think, you know, get us through a lot of the hurdles. So I can just delete this. I don't need it, just to show you what that would be, how that would fold. Let's see. So now I'm just going to bring this text in. Select, copy, and paste. Now the other thing I need to do is set up my paragraph styles. That's probably one of the first few things I'll do in almost every project. Put in those fonts. Myriad Pro, probably going to want, I don't know, 10 or 11 on that. Really 9 through 12 is probably an acceptable size. I think 11 is probably a little bit better for this font. So 11 point. Oh, let's see, what else do I have to think about? This is just the standard leading that would come with it. So we'll just go okay on this. If we need to, we can change it. Let me call this body though. Body style or whatever you want to label that. You just got a title and a body. And I'm noticing this, when I bring this in, it just runs it all together. So it doesn't preserve the styles. And that's actually kind of good, because a lot of times you'll get these conflicting word styles in InDesign. You don't usually want that. So here we've got the title, and here we've got the body text. Title, and we've got body text on that. So really, I don't know, the other thing, maybe we don't want, well, we definitely don't want that on the cover, although we might be able to have it on the cover. Maybe it's down like this, and we've got a big photo here. The other thing too, the way I've set this up, well, it'll work. So you could put like a photo up here, something. Maybe you could put a photo and run it all along the whole thing, because maybe when people open this, they'll be opening it like looking at the whole piece of paper. You won't be reading it so much like a book. So that's with the spine on this side, you're going to look at it more like a whole piece of paper. So 1, 2, 3 panels at once. You want it to look good as a folded brochure, but when someone picks up this type of a piece, they're going to more or less look at the whole thing, the whole side of that, and then turn it over. So here, well, I'll just kind of drop these in to each of the panels. Moving through it. I'm going to come back for this, benefits of walking. I'm really pressed for space with all the stuff we have here. So, this one, I don't even have to know the panels, but I'm thinking, if I put them, if I just look at all the content that I have and maybe just apply some standard titles to it and body type, then I'll at least see enough of what I'm working with to kind of feel like, all right, now I can kind of juggle things around, put things in the right places, etc. So preparing yourself to walk and get the right gear and stretch are things that we have to work with. It didn't preserve that return, so we'll have to put a hard return ourselves in there. Make this the title. Put in a space here, but we can adjust that later too. Get the right gear and stretch are the bold ones. And again, I'm going to have to hit return for that one. And where is stretch anyways? So just applying some really basic formatting though is going to give me just more of an idea of what I have to work with here. These ones I think I just want to bold, or maybe I want to make them all caps or do something. Let's just bold them. For that, how about we do the character style, add bold. And I like to just leave these blank, and that way in this case, we probably wouldn't, but if you do change the font to something different, you're not having to change it here as well. So if you leave everything blank, it kind of cascades and applies to whatever font family you have. So I just like to, in character styles, just add bold. And so we can just do that. Italic would be another good one to add here. Let's do that while we're here. It's easy enough. Italic. Again, I don't bother with anything but the font style, which is the better way to go, actually. So, let's make sure it works. Let's see something that maybe was italic. Check out our wide variety. Supporting good section of the store. Is that the only thing? Need a yoga mat. All right, that's where it starts. There we go. Italic. And this would probably be italic as well. And I don't care if you preserve the exact formatting of this, but keep it in mind. An author, writer, kind of did this for us to show, this was emphasized or intended to look different. So you can either use italic, which would be one way to apply it, to emphasize this, or you could change color. You could make it smaller or larger. you could put it in a little text block, or you could do a bunch of different things than just italic. But that's an easy one. Probably, you can use that if you want. It's typically used so people identify with italic. Usually it's emphasis within a body of text, but in this case it's kind of to call attention to the specifics of this. Just need to find the perfect shoes, etc. So if you want to use a different treatment, you can in this. All right, so maybe I'd want to have all this on the same page. So I can just select all of this. Maybe I want like all of this on the same page. This seems like it would be grouped. Just look at it in terms of what seems logical. Maybe just this is what I'll do. Bring it into InDesign. Paste that, and then apply our styles. Get out of character styles for now. Track your progress. So if I apply it here, but we don't have our return, let's make sure we put our hard return in there first and then apply this. The other one was finding your route. You can just put that space in there for now. I think it's too much, and I'm going to plan to adjust it. But again, I'm just really trying to quickly lay all this content in here, find out what I'm working with. Where's my map going to go? That's going to be the big question, I think, is how's that going to work out? Maybe what I want to do is put that in now. I can just place that PDF. I should have known that would happen. So I'm just going to scale it down. And that will be one way to handle it. Use my margins that are existing here. Maybe I could put a little a border on it. That might work, like a 1-point border. However, notice that it didn't really apply the content as was intended. So it ran it really close to this border down here. And also 1 is really quite thick, so I might just want to do 0.25, or even a 0.5 might work. Okay. But I don't know why it's asking for these things. All right, so what could we do here? One trick we could probably do is just, that's extra space. We probably don't really need it. Maybe, but I want more space down here. I want a stroke on that. It's just a white piece that gives me some margin at the bottom. Not visible, but it should help when I am in InDesign here. Now it should be telling me that this has changed. Let me look at the links panel. So yeah. That's weird, it didn't update it. Well, I'm confused. It should have given us this little border down here. I just put a margin at the bottom. I wonder why that didn't work. We should be including that in our document. There's always several ways to do what we need it to do. Let's try this. Rectangle frame tool. This is roughly about the right size. We're after 48 by 48. Perfect square will go right in here. That's selected, and we'll just put it right in there. And fit content proportionally. And now we can just run. Let's go 0.5. Just a really subtle box to kind of show a map. Which is to be at the top. So there's our map. I also want to include photos. We want to include the logo. And we still got a bunch of text here to go. So this is a bit challenging. We'll take these two, cut, paste. You got the stay motivated, be glad you started. You know, I'm looking at, boy, if I have so much space to work with, I'm definitely tight. Do I want to make my titles as big as they are? Do I want to add that much space? Doesn't seem like I have that much room to work with, especially when we want to do like a checklist and a calendar at the end. So, you know, this one would be just check boxes, something like that could go by, but that's our last bit of content that we need to bring in. Okay, so you'll be glad you started and stay motivated. This one also gets that title treatment. Bring our guides back. Body, 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 and title. Now there it is, using our margins, so we can figure this out. I mean, that's it's a pretty tight brochure. As far as the text goes, I don't know. I kind of like this content about the optional content. I might want to use it, but really, we've got a lot of room. I want to see some photos. I think with too much text in there, it is important text. It's good, but it's optional. So get it if I really feel like I need it. Now maybe let's at least get some sort of cover started. Let's get some interesting. I could use these same photos for what we used in the map as well. Or you can also use some different ones. I think I don't know about the outside. Maybe it's your choice, really. Just because I don't want to use that doesn't mean you don't have to. But I kind of like that photo. It's kind of interesting. So it does make sense to have an outside photo on the cover. I just didn't quite like it when I first saw it, but maybe all things considered, let's see, maybe running even something across like the whole top of the panel. If somebody opens this brochure, keep those fold lines in mind where that's going to fold, but I think it's kind of cool to have something stretch across the whole thing. You could do something like that. I'm always worried though, like that looks kind of good. Might look fun. So if someone opens that whole thing, this would be, to see what this looks like as far as so somebody picking up this brochure on the rack. We like that. I think it looks good anyways, but you also want to make sure it looks good on the rack, and we'll kind of hold up that way. Insights and curiosity. Sometimes if the element is simple enough, you can just cut and paste it from Illustrator. Let's see if it'll let us do that. I think it works. It's just a very simple vector object. Oops. That's centered text, so it wants to be centered. Centered within that frame. So the fold is right here, remember, and there's margin here on each side. Maybe that blue might be good. I can go back into Illustrator, take, why don't we just take all of this and bring it in here. Again, cut, paste. If you see the swatches, it just picked up all of this automatically. So I can just delete it. I don't really need that element. What I'm after is just the color. I'm seeing what this front cover will look like. If we do something here, we can bleed this off the edge. I kind of like the way that building comes around like that. That's kind of neat. So I might use that. And we'll see here. Move the chat window. Get rid of that stroke. I don't know, my idea was maybe to use the blue on here a little bit. Even kind of outline it. So just one thought. A little bit tricky trying to get these handles in Illustrator or in InDesign, I mean. So that's just straight right now. What I actually want is something that conforms to that edge. And so now we've got like a little bit of a tease going on, but we've also got the logo. So I think that's going to work pretty good for our cover. So the tease of the sign, people look at that. It instantly makes you want to see what is in the next, where's that going to? So we're just seeing that partial facade of the building here. So it's kind of cool. Let's maybe move this down. So, a little bit of that, pretty much more than that, and it might be kind of a problem. But I like the fact that I think this is working out pretty well for me anyways. I like it. Maybe we could come up here a little bit. So I don't know if this spells it out. What I'm doing here. I mean, this is just, again, my choice of solution. You'll have things that you'll like doing. I need to make that more curved and a little bit better. I just dropped it in here really quick. I won't, go too much into detail there, but hopefully this gives you enough of an idea, because we're officially out of time, and I do have to consider things like that. Well, how does that work with the panel? Can I run it up above this? Yeah, you could. I think that would work okay. There's something you can do. But it's still kind of weird. It's a little bit, what are some solutions? All right. How about the old box here where it's a partial maybe transparent. Let's see. Let's see in my transparency. See if we can. So this is just one idea that I had. I was going to make a transparent box here that could also work. Not the only solution to doing this, but something you could do. Where is, anybody know where transparency is? It's, what do they call it in InDesign. Opacity. Don't call it the transparency panel in InDesign. So it's called something else. I'm not seeing it here. Anyway, so what I was going to do is make that transparent. I'm looking for the controls up here. For some reason, I don't see. Can't remember if it's opacity or transparency or effects. That's what it is. I don't know why they don't name things consistently. I wish they would. So opacity. There. I mean, that's not great, but what if we ran it all the way up? Used our margin. Might look kind of cool. Maybe we put another photo, like we bled this off. And maybe we use this photo here. Let's see, fit content proportionally, not quite. It's actually not looking so bad how it is. And maybe, you know, the downside of this is maybe I don't want to cover this top part of the building up. Preparing yourself to walk. Yeah, I don't like that. I kind of like this big. Now this one would maybe go in some area down here. I don't know, somewhere. Our text. So this is not a finished piece, but I'm out of time here. So 4:30 is when I wrap things. I usually try not to go later than that, ever. Sometimes it happens, but rarely. So I'm still faced with this problem, but there's nothing that's like, no real rule as to why I have to have that longer bit of content on this panel. So, you know, I could just easily maneuver around that and find a different solution. Save this one for later. I like that photo, but so that could work. That's just on the outside panel. So you want to consider, you know, how people are going to read the panels. Like I say, they're probably going to open it like this. Might we want to do things like make all of these line up across the top? Might be a good way to go. So I'll stop there, depending on, you know, what you're after here. There's all kinds of different things that you could do, and, you know, have some fun with it. I think there's a lot of content in here. I'll admit there's a lot of content to work with, but I've got to start. I need at least another half an hour to finish something on this to like actually have something that's really presentable, but at least it's a start. And I think hopefully you get the idea more or less, because that's all that we have time for. After the recording, did you still want to see my, oh, not today. I actually have to go somewhere. So Connie, I thought you meant, because at the beginning I did a presentation. Did you see that? I actually showed yours in the very beginning of today's lesson. So make sure to go back and watch that. I talked about it for about 10 minutes. Okay, good. Good deal. I wasn't sure if you were here or not when I showed that. So do you guys have any other questions, last minute things to ask on this brochure? Again, you're exporting a PDF, submitting a PDF. So really just any of the standard ones will work. Even for me, I just want to see your layout. Basically, you can use, I'll go over this really quick. The presets, that's what you want. So File, Adobe PDF presets, you can use any of these. High quality print, PDF X1A is kind of the print one I'd recommend using if you're going to do that. Smallest file size also works. That'd be fine if you want to do that one. And as far as, marks and bleeds, for example, you could just go, I don't really want to save this, but it's not nearly done. But marks and bleeds, I just do crop marks and use document bleed settings. Those would be the only two I'd recommend checking. I'm not going to take any points off either way. If you have all printers marks, that's fine. But those are the two that are ideal. Crop marks and then document bleeds for that. So just those two checks. That'd be the only thing you'd need to worry about, like in marks and bleeds, or you could just do a standard export, and that doesn't even, if you just use that standard, it doesn't even do anything with the crop marks and bleed marks and printer's marks and all that stuff. So just standard, run through that. I'm not really checking that for this class, so it's not really something you have to be too concerned with, but just the standard PDF export and not doing anything, just hitting return when you get to the or OK when you get to that text box would be fine too. But if you want, I think I'd recommend doing that. Just crop marks and document bleed marks. I think that'd be optimal. So anyways, that's all I have. So thanks for watching, and I'll look forward to seeing your projects this weekend. Yeah, that's fine, Connie. You can do that. Sure. Cool. All right. We'll see you guys next week and see your projects this weekend. Thanks again. Bye. Have a good day.